We will be talking about the NHL's opening week. On Left Bench Sports.
Cave on, did Alex. No, the Dolphins are not frauds.
All right, we gotta restart
again.
Bad this defense has been. I do not trust them against the Dolphins at all.
Milwaukee Bucks join the finals this year.
Got a whopping 52 fantasy points in Miami's route of Broncos country.
My 80-year-old grandmother could have broken more tackles and probably made more plays than Mahomes if they gave her a helmet and some football pads.
Welcome back to Left Bench Sports. Today we'll be talking about NHL All-Star games, college basketball, and the Super Bowl predictions. The first game we'll be recapping is Team McDavid versus Team McKinnon. But before we start, we'll be going over the team captains of the 4 teams in the NHL games.
The first team was Team McDavid with assistant captain Leon Draisaitl, and the celebrity captain was Will Arnett.
The second team was Team McKinnon, co-captain Cale Makar, and a celebrity captain Tate McRae.
And the third team was Team Hughes, with the co-captains being Quinn and Jack, and the celebrity captain was Michael Bublé.
And then the last team was Team Matthews, assistant captain Morgan Riley, and celebrity captain Justin Bieber.
Yep.
And then to get into the first game that we will be recapping, like I said, was Team McKinnon versus Team McDavid. In the first period, Team McKinnon struck first with a goal by their very own captain Nathan McKinnon, assisted by Cale Makar and Sidney Crosby. And then Team McDavid came right back and scored to tie the game at 1 from Boone Jenner, assisted by Nick Suzuki and Thomas Hurdle.
Boone Jenner, future Ranger, calling it right now.
We'll see.
Yep. And then in the second period, Team McKinnon scored to take a 2-1 lead from Oliver Bjorkstrand, and was assisted by Travis Konechny and Elias Lindholm.
Then Nathan McKinnon scored again for his second goal of the game to make it 3-1. And then Team McDavid scored to make it a 3-2 game from David Pastrnak, Bruins All-Star, assisted from Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yep. Then Connor McDavid tied the game at 3-3. It was assisted by David Pastrnak and Leon Draisaitl.
And then there's no overtime in the All-Star games. It goes right to a shootout where McDavid and Pastrnak both scored to win for Team McDavid. And Team McDavid will play either Team Matthews or Team Hughes in the final.
Yep. And the second game we'll be recapping to see who went into the final was Team Matthews versus Team Hughes. And the winner of this game obviously plays Team McDavid. So in the first period, with only a minute in, Team Hughes' Nikita Kucherov from the Tampa Bay Lightning scored, and the fans were happy that he scored because the skills competition seemed like he didn't really want to be there.
Yeah, he during the passing competition, his passing is unbelievable usually, but he was missing every pass attempt, and he just wasn't trying or anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't have to try, but the fans didn't really like it. But when he scored, the fans were cheering for him, and they and it was a good time.
John Cooper, the Lightning coach, was talking about it, and they all know his intensity, how intense of a player he is when he is actually playing a real game. So
yeah.
I don't think it mattered too much that he wasn't trying. It's just a skills competition.
It's just a fun weekend for all the players that get picked. Just a fun weekend. Then Alex DeBrincat of Team Matthews scored, and it was assisted by Philip Forsberg. Then Team Hughes scored to make it 2-1. A goal from Frank Vetrano.
Future Ranger.
He used to be a Bruin too. Assisted from the goalie Cam Talbot and captain Quinn Hughes.
Yep. Then DeBrincat scored his second of the period to make the game 2-2. And then at the start of the second, Mitch Marner scored, assisted by Clayton Keller and Austin Matthews.
Then Elias Pettersson of Team Hughes made it a tie game, assisted by Frank Vetrano and Nikita Kucherov. Then 20 seconds later, Philip Forsberg made it 4-3 for Team Matthews. And then once again, Team Hughes tied it up for a goal from Brady Tkachuk, assisted by Quinn Hughes and Kyle Connor.
Yeah, I feel like Philip Forsberg is a little underrated.
Yeah, he was in he's been in the Vezina racing like the last few years, but like 2 years ago he was probably like one of the best defensemen in the league. He's still up there, but like he's like a lot of people haven't heard his name in a while.
Yep. Then Team Hughes scored again to take the lead, and a goal from Frank Vetrano, which was the second of the game, assisted by Quinn Hughes and Kyle Connor again.
Then once again, Philip Forsberg scored for Team Matthews for second of the game as well, and assisted by Alex DeBrincat and Matt Barzell.
Yeah.
And then DeBrincat scored the only goal in the shootout to win it for Team Matthews, and they will play Team McDavid in the finals.
Yeah, and speaking of Barzell, seeing him and Shesterkin face off was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was. Barzell's a great player. He fell off a little bit, but like not
Yeah.
but I feel like he's still like one of the best players in the league.
His skating is unmatched.
Yeah, he's a really fast player. He's really fast.
Yeah, it was cool for all the New York fans of both the Rangers and Islanders to see him and Shesterkin face
Yeah,
off for
and
sure.
I saw today actually there might be next year's All-Star weekend might be in Belmont where the
First
Islanders play there for the first time. Like, so that would be a great experience for New York fans, and people around like the tri-state area. Like that'll be a good environment there in Belmont, new arena. It'll be a nice venue.
Yep.
Then the last game we'll be recapping is the finals game, Team McDavid versus Team Matthews. To start the game, 2 minutes in, Clayton Keller scored, assisted by Austin Matthews and Morgan Riley for Team Matthews. So
Then Team McDavid scored with a goal from Boone Jenner, assisted by Nick Suzuki. And then Team Matthews bounced back again to make it 2-1 from Mitch Marner, assisted by William Nylander and Vincent Trocheck. And then 40 seconds later, David Pastrnak made it a 2-2 game. That was assisted by Leon Draisaitl.
Yep, and then 13 seconds later, Austin Matthews scored to take the lead again. And then once again, Team McDavid comes right back 17 seconds later with a goal from Leon Draisaitl, from Connor McDavid and David Pastrnak. And then amid it into the second period, Philip Forsberg scored for Team Matthews to take the lead again. Then Austin Matthews scored his second goal of the game, assisted by Clayton Keller and Matt Barzell. And then after that goal, Team Matthews had taken a 5-3 lead.
Yep. Alex DeBrincat scored an empty net goal to make it 6-3, and Tomas Hertl scored a goal for McDavid, but that would be their last of the game.
Yep, and then Matthew Barzell again scored for Team Matthews to get them up to 7 goals. So the final score was 7-4. And Austin Matthews got the MVP of the All-Star games. He had 2 goals and 2 assists out of the whole game. But I mean, he's the hometown captain. I think they gave it to him on purpose too. Like Philip Forsberg, he had a good time. He did good.
Yeah.
Draisaitl did good. Pastrnak did good. McDavid did good. Vetrano, McKinnon, like name all these players. These are all the top players in the league.
It was definitely still justified that Matthews got it. I also think, obviously, you have to be a little biased being in Toronto.
Yeah.
So,
but otherwise, it was a great weekend. They also brought back the All-Star draft, which is cool.
yeah.
I thought it was better than just splitting them up into like their divisions, like the Metro, the Pacific, Atlantic, and
I didn't like the division
Midwest.
splits.
Or whatever it is.
But I did like, at one point, the All-Star game was just one game.
Yeah.
Like the conferences. I thought that was kind of cool because then you get to see like
The best of the best
it's
from
just
each
one game.
Yep, the best of the best from each
Yeah.
conference. But it was still a good weekend. I'm sure all the players had fun. But now they're back to each team has about like 30 games left, so it's going to be interesting to see who's running for those last playoff spots.
Yeah.
So
Definitely going to be an interesting race in the Metro.
Yeah,
See who wins
especially
the
like
division.
Carolina, New York, New Jersey, like the
I think it's
Philadelphia.
I think it's a 3-team race for the division.
Yeah.
With Carolina, the Rangers, and Philly.
Philly's looking really good this year.
It's a little scary for them not having Carter Hart with everything
we'll see what
that
happens
went on.
there. Yeah, that mess up in London.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for watching the NACL All-Star Game on Left Bench Sports. Stay with us as Luke and Myles talk about the Super Bowl.
Welcome back to Left Bench Sports. This week we'll be talking about the upcoming Super Bowl. The 49ers have showcased their championship DNA as they have had 2 come-from-behind wins against 2 really tough physical NFC North teams, while the Chiefs went through a treacherous gauntlet of a schedule while playing in frigid temperatures against the Dolphins and Bills. With that being said, Luke, who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
I think the Chiefs are going to win just because they just have the playoff experience. They've won 2 Super Bowls already. They won last year. We were talking about the Niners coming from behind, but the Chiefs, they're known to come from behind in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes is really good. He's going to get it done. And I also think the Chiefs' defense is better this year. And Brock Purdy, if they could get to him, get some pressure on him, he's really not that good. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. Like, Mahomes is a great quarterback. And Purdy can make some mistakes if they get pressure on him. And that's why I think along with Travis Kelce, that's why the Chiefs are going to win this week and win the Super Bowl.
So I'm not sure if, I'm kind of debating if I want the Niners to win or I think the Niners are going to win. I know I want them, but I also think they're going to win. So Brock Purdy just looks locked in. I'm hoping the pressure doesn't get to him. I mean, Mahomes has been used to the scene for a while now. 5 years, 4 AFC championships, and he's already back to the Super Bowl again. You know, I think it's going to be really tough for the Niners, but I think with the way the offense is playing, they can get it done. They just need to execute because we saw that against the Lions. It was a rough first half. They weren't able to execute. Second half, they were amazing. They need to start like that from the beginning and not let the Chiefs defense get to them.
Yeah, I think if the 49ers fall behind again, it's going to be really tough to come back against Patrick Mahomes. This isn't Jared Goff you're running against. It's like one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, playoff Patrick Mahomes is really hard to play against. That's why I'm kind of on the edge, but no, I really do think the Niners will get it done. They have so many weapons, like offense and defense, so if they're not able to get it done, it's just going to be a heartbreaker. But I think what needs to happen is get Christian McCaffrey the ball on offense. You know, he is probably their main part of the offense, even though they have guys like George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. I think we also need to see a big game from George Kittle because I feel like when he's affecting the game in many ways, that's when they do good. You know, a lot of people say that he's a good blocking tight end, but then you also see that receiving side. It's crazy what he does for the team. So I think that if those 2 guys step up along with Brock Purdy in the offense executing in the beginning, I think they will have a good chance at winning.
Yeah, I mean, McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year last night, so we know he's a great player, and he should really help out their offense. So, Jake, how much do you think this game will affect Mahomes' legacy? Like, does he have to win this one to be considered one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time?
I mean, this one is really big. He has two Super Bowl wins, 2 rings. Brady has 7. So, I mean, it's still relatively early. He's almost 30.
Yeah, I think he's like late 20s.
It's big. If he wins this, he gets his 3rd, and that's huge. So I think it affects him a lot. If he wins, I mean, I don't know. You can't really compare it to Brady's 7 rings, but if he wins, he's definitely starting to get compared to Brady with the way he's been.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not 7 yet, but if he gets his 3rd already, then, I mean, he could still have another 10 years of playing. There's a chance he gets to as much as Brady. I mean, it's not likely. It's really hard for any player to get 7 championships in any sport.
I mean, even if you don't reach what Brady got, I mean, I don't think that's anything to feel
because
bad
he's
about.
the greatest player.
Yeah, I mean,
And Mahomes has a tremendous amount of talent. Like,
Yeah,
He may have more talent than Brady.
yeah. Brady has a great arm, great accuracy, but he wasn't as good as he wasn't as mobile as Mahomes and as good as
Yeah.
creating plays. Like we saw against the Ravens, he'll get pressure and he'll still find a way to get away and make a play. I mean, it's just crazy. So even if Mahomes may not get 7 rings, if he gets 2 more, even just two, maybe even 3 more, I mean, you could still argue that he's the greatest of all time because you don't need 7 rings to argue that. I mean, he's just such a
Yeah.
great player.
Yeah, well, if he is the second best player of all time, I mean, he's on one of the greatest runs ever to begin a career, and he's looking to become the only quarterback to repeat since 2003 and 2004 when it was Tom Brady and the New England Patriots repeating as champions. It hasn't happened since then. It's really just a tough thing to do in football. I mean, it happens in basketball. It could happen in baseball. It's just football is so tough. So, it's tough to get back to the Super Bowl and win back-to-back years.
If I'm being honest, I don't know how they did it. I mean, first, half of the year, basically all the way until the end of the season, they looked rough. I mean, I just thought the Chiefs would be first or second round exits, but we got to the playoffs. We saw playoff Mahomes, and, it's disappointing to see, in my opinion, because I don't want to be a Chiefs hater, but I don't like seeing the Chiefs there every single year. But, once Mahomes gets in the playoffs, he's extremely hard to stop. So as long as the Chiefs get in the playoffs, I mean, I think they have as good of a chance as anyone getting the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just all year, it's like no one on their offense could really make a big play or catch the ball, and they got to the playoffs. And obviously they still have Travis Kelce, and he plays great. But then, Rashee Rice became good. Marquez Valdes-Scantling made a big catch last week. And it's just like people start making plays once you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, they were able to figure it out at the perfect time, throughout the season. No one really stepped up. All the receivers were really being clowned. People were saying get Mahomes some help, but now we're reaching the end of the season. Guys are starting to step up. And even with not a lot of receiver help, Mahomes still made it.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for this week. See you next week on Left Bench Sports, and unfortunately, we'll not have any football until next September.
Welcome back to Left Bench. Today I have another coverage of college basketball. To start off, I have to talk about my predictions from last week for Saturday's games. Very unsuccessful. I only went 1 for 4, but I think I made some mistakes, and the first one was definitely picking Houston to beat Kansas. Don't know why I chose them to win, especially against a Kansas team who is extremely hard to beat at home. I'm still going to stand on a few things, though. I do not think Houston are frauds. They're definitely still a great team. And I also said last week, Kansas needs to prove themselves this weekend. And they did, a very convincing win. They seem almost unbeatable at home. But I will stand on the fact that they've been very inconsistent. They've taken quite a few bad losses. They just lost to Kansas State earlier in the week. I'm not going to knock them down too much for that one. It was a rivalry game on the road, and that's a really hard one to win. But hopefully they'll get back to looking like the normal Jayhawks, winning these type of games, and they can continue it. That's for sure how they'll be able to prove themselves more to me. But with this one, they moved up to number 4, and Houston's right behind them at 5. Next game I talked about last week was Duke and UNC. I got proved wrong on that one too. UNC came out and won this game. A few takeaways. First, it's obviously hard to go and win on the road. Just like the Kansas game on Saturday, the atmosphere was amazing. I did like what I saw from Jared McCain, though. Despite the loss, he looked to be the most consistent player for Duke. He finished with 23 points and 11 rebounds. And, he looked pretty good for his first game against UNC. Even with the Duke loss, there were still 3 players over 20. Roach had 20. Filipowski had 22. I think the thing that they were missing was a big game for Proctor. I was talking about him last week, saying that he's been hot, and they needed a big game from him in Chapel Hill. Very underwhelming performance, though. Just 2 points, 2 assists, and 3 rebounds. They also struggled with turnovers against UNC. Had a lot of points off of turnovers, and they played pretty good defense the whole game against Duke. On the Tar Heels side of the ball, even with what I thought, even with what some people thought was a bad game from R.J. Davis, he still had 17 points, and I think that just proves how good he really is this year. You know, people thought that he had an off game, yet he still had 17 and impacted the game in many other ways. I think Ingram was a big factor in this game too. Obviously, Baycott as well, but I think Baycott needed to be humbled a little after this game. He claimed that the ACC runs through him, but he's been in college for 5 years now and hasn't won one ACC championship. He then proceeded to lose the next game against Clemson Tuesday night, so that's just something to laugh about after he's saying that the ACC runs through him. But to wrap up this game for Duke, I mean, they don't have too much of a hard schedule ahead of them until like Virginia and really UNC again. They just really have to keep playing good basketball until they reach these tougher opponents, because we know how common these upset wins are and how easy they come by. Moving on, Iowa State and Baylor. I'm not going to take it as too much of a loss for me on the prediction side. I mean, Iowa State was just milliseconds away from winning this game. And playing on the road is just tough, man, especially in the Big 12. The Big 12 is just straight chaos right now. Everyone is taking each other out left and right. You know, we just saw another upset win. Oklahoma beat BYU. And I don't honestly know who should be ranked over who at this point, because any team can lose to another team in the Big 12 on any given night. But at the end of the day, I still think, in my opinion, that Iowa State is a better team than Baylor come March Madness time. The last game I gave a prediction for was Tennessee and Kentucky. This was the one I actually got right, and Tennessee took this one pretty convincingly. Not going to discuss about it too much, but one thing I want to talk about is how good Rob Dillingham has been. 35 points, 4 assists against Tennessee, college career high. He was hitting such tough shots that night. You know, we also just witnessed 20-9 versus Vanderbilt. He's just one of those guys that can go get you a bucket at any given time. But going back to the actual game, Tennessee just looked like the better team. You know, I think Kentucky has a lot of potential, a ton of talent, as I always say, but Coach Cal just has to help these guys unlock it. Now moving on, there were some new additions to the AP poll and some new teams who moved up. Many who are well-deserved, also some teams that take a step back, but there's also some teams who I think can make their way into the top 25. Let's just get into it. Here's the poll for this week. A team that I mentioned quite a few times in the past few weeks is South Carolina, and they actually got put right where I ranked them last week at 15. I think this is completely deserving. They continue to look better and better, and I think they're really legit. After 2 wins against top 10 teams, they picked up number 20 against Ole Miss this week. Great win against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a pretty good team, and South Carolina should get an easy one against Vanderbilt. And then the real test does come against Auburn next week. Auburn's coming off that huge win against Bama. That was a statement win after losing in Tuscaloosa. But this one's going to be tough for Carolina. They're going to be on the road against Auburn, a team who is 12-0 at home. And at the same time, I could see them winning this game. They've taken down tough teams like Tennessee on the road. But without a doubt, if they take this one, I mean, it's going to be huge. It's going to prove how good they really are. Now going to move on from this, quickly talk about Sunday, Purdue versus Wisconsin. Long story short, it was a great game, and Purdue won a close one. A great game for Purdue. They're now 5-0 versus top 10 opponents this season. Crazy resume. Zach Edey still making his National Player of the Year case, and they're just playing extremely well basketball. You know, 21-2 and sitting at the number 2 spot. Wisconsin, on the other hand, is starting to fall off a little now. You know, you saw that loss against Nebraska, didn't think too much about it. By the way, if Nebraska could win a few road games, I think they're a top 25 team. Besides this, the loss against Purdue doesn't hurt them too much because obviously Purdue is an amazing college basketball team. But now something that does scratch your head a little bit is the loss against 8-15 Michigan earlier. Obviously an awful loss. Now fans might start to worry about them. They're 16-7 now on a 3-game losing streak. I definitely expect a few teams to move up over them after this week. Probably Iowa State, Baylor, South Carolina too, but Wisconsin's going to look to bounce back against Rutgers. I think they can. They just need to get back to winning. Now, as I said before, I think there's some teams who could work their way to being ranked. Actually, just one I wanted to bring up. And I think one team who's going to eventually make their way back into the top 25 real soon is Virginia. The first almost half of the season, in my opinion, they looked awful. Took really bad losses to really bad teams, but they've now been on a 7-game win streak and second in the ACC. Great time for this team to heat up and start winning games. And the thing that they're doing in these wins is just playing amazing defense. You know, coming off a 20-point win against Miami, and they only scored 60 points. They held Miami to 38 points. Just crazy to think about. And a lot of their wins come from just outplaying their opponents defensively. Very often is it that they win scoring below 70 points, but after a good win against Miami, they move up to 18-5 and second in the ACC behind UNC. So if they keep winning, I can see their way making their way back into the top 25 without a doubt. As I have been, I'm going to tell you my top 15. I don't think that there's a lot to challenge or change until we leave really the top 6 or 7 teams. So here's the first 7, all the same. 1 UConn, 2 Purdue, 3 UNC. I think they may be challenged, or that the AP poll may move them back just a little bit after this week because they took a loss to Clemson. But I don't think so, in my opinion. It's just 1 loss, and Clemson isn't a bad team at all. You know, definitely didn't look as strong as they did. They didn't look as strong as they did on defense, like against Duke. So something to take into mind. But I think they'll still stay at 3. They could bounce back. 4 Kansas, 5 Houston, 6 and 7 is Tennessee and Marquette. I'm not gonna challenge that at all. I think that's definitely right until the teams behind them start heating up a little. 8, I'll take Duke, and 9, I'll take Arizona. Arizona's picked up some decent wins recently, but I have talked about them before, and I don't feel too strongly about them. With that being said, I'll leave them at 9. 10, I'll leave Illinois, and then 11, I'm going to put Auburn, South Carolina at 12, and then Baylor 13, Iowa State 14. Last at 15, I'll take Wisconsin, move them back 4 spots. 3 losses in a row. They don't look as great as they did a week or 2 ago. And like I said before, I believe these few teams are better than them as of right now. I do think that Wisconsin could bounce back, though, just need to get back to winning. But with that being said, that's my top 15 teams for this week. That's all I got for you this week on Left Bench. Stay tuned for next week. More college basketball coverage coming your way.